Hey everyone, this is Stan, K9SWX, and today we're going to be talking about the Raspberry Pi. So recently wife and I were on a little weekend holiday trip over to Indianapolis in Indiana, and we discovered they had a Micro Center, which is a pretty big electronics store. So we popped in there and went all over the building, just looking at different things that they had. And I noticed that they had the Raspberry Pi, a little Raspberry Pi section. So we went over there, and I went by there a couple times. I'm thinking, I didn't really see anything out there. I just kind of had some accessories, and we ran into one of the salespeople and asked them if they had any Pi 4s in stock, because the Pi 5s really aren't available too many places yet. So I just figured I'd get the Pi 4, and he told me they had a few left. So I went ahead and picked up this 1 gigabyte version, 1 gig RAM of the Pi 4, and also picked up power supply for it. And then we've got, this came in a 2-pack actually. This is a Trend Micro branded, Micro Center branded micro SD card, 32 gigabytes. It was like $6 or something for 2 of them. I think $6 or $7. So that was pretty good deal. I normally stick with SanDisk or Samsung micro SD cards, but I figured for the price we'll try them out. And then this is just the official Raspberry Pi case. It's got all the port holes that you need. Nothing fancy, just piece of plastic basically. But I got that whole little setup for about I think it was $55 or $56 with tax. So pretty excited about that, because you go on Amazon or something like that, and you still, if you buy the kit, they're usually still close to $100, if not more. So I figured, why not piece it together and try it out, because I do have a few Raspberry Pi models in my collection, or they're in use actually. I've got some that do all kinds of things. I track airplanes. I stream the weather radio and local ham repeater to Broadcastify. I've got a couple other older models. I've started from the Pi 1. I've got a Pi 2. I got a Pi 3, and I got a Pi 4. So now I have a couple Pi 4s. So I figured we would talk about the Pi, since the shortage during the pandemic seems to be receding, at least for the Pi 4s. So, all right, so let's take a look at what's in this box here. So this is the Raspberry Pi 4 box. Let's see if I can get the darn thing open. Oh, hey, here we go. Open here. Let's try that. Come on. Well, there it is. That is a computer. Let me pop it out here. Yeah, let's turn it this way so we can read it. Put the light on it. Okay. So there's your Raspberry Pi 4. I think apparently they came out in 2018. Seems like a lifetime ago. But it's got various ports on it. It's got your, you got USB 2, you got USB 3. Here's your Ethernet jack. Then on this side, you've got power and a couple of smaller HDMIs. I believe they're micro HDMI, something like that. And then you've got, looks like an audio jack, another little port for various accessories. Here's all the, you can add other boards onto this, or you can plug a fan and camera and all kinds of other goodies in here. But yeah, that's it's a pretty small little computer, and these have been out for years. First thing we need to do is load an operating system onto the SD card, because this is just a blank SD card. There's no operating system on it, and this is what the Pi uses to boot up and store files and do whatever it has to do. So what we need to do is go to the Raspberry Pi website which is raspberrypi.com, and go to the software section, and you will see the Raspberry Pi Imager. And this will work on Mac, it'll work on Windows, and it'll also work on Ubuntu. And I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to download this for Mac. And we got it up here. We're just going to go ahead and open it. And I'm going to drag it to Applications. And then it installs. Then I'm going to go to Applications. And I'm going to go to Raspberry Pi Imager. And it's going to ask, you sure you want to open? Yes. All right, so when you open up the Raspberry Pi Imager, it's going to ask you what your device is. So for me, I have the Raspberry Pi 4, but if you've got the new one, the 5, you can choose that. It's got the Pi 0, 2, the Pi 3, the Pi 2, the old Pi 0, and the Pi 1. So it makes it pretty easy. You just click the one you got. So I'm going to go with the 4. And then my operating system, this is not the one I'm going to choose because this isn't how I'm going to use this particular Pi. But most of you will probably go with this unless you're doing something similar to what I'm doing. But I'm going to come down here to Other. And then I'm going to choose the Raspberry Pi OS Lite 64-bit with no desktop environment. So this is a lot smaller download, and it's going to use less resources on the Pi until you start actually running programs. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to pick our card reader, which is the one in the laptop. I'm going to hit Next. And for me, since I'm going to be accessing this remotely, I'm going to edit the settings. That way I don't have to hook up the Pi to a monitor and keyboard. I can just take the SD card from the computer, plug it into the Pi, boot the Pi up, and then remote in, all without having to do any manual input directly on the Pi. So on this first screen, you can set a variety of things, like the host name. It's just the name of the Pi, the login credentials, and then you've got your Wi-Fi login if you're using that, or you can just use Ethernet, and then whatever your locale settings, like I'm in Central Time Zone, so I pick Chicago, and then I have the US keyboard. So once you get all this entered, I'm just gonna make up something here. We're gonna do we'll just call it test, and then I will set a password. Normally I'm going to use the Pi username and then come up with whatever password I want. And then I've already got my Wi-Fi credentials in here, but this is where you this is the name of your access point, and then whatever password you use to get into that. And then I have, mine doesn't broadcast the SSID, so I have that checked. And if you want to double check, you can hit show password and then pick your country so it uses the right Wi-Fi frequencies. And then again, I'm picking the Central Time Zone, which for me is Chicago, and then US. So I'm going to hit, oh wait, let me go back up here real quick. Then we got services. For me, this is crucial. SSH, which lets me remote in. You can use a key here if you know what that is. I'm just going to use password. And then just a couple other options, which are fine. So I'm going to come down here and hit save. And then I'm going to hit yes. Okay, then it says all existing data on, well, basically your SD card will be erased. Are you sure you want to continue? So I'm going to hit yes. And then this program, the Pi Imager, does its thing. Basically, it unmounts the drive, and then it writes the image. Oops, once my password. Hold on. Now it's writing the image to the SD card, which takes a little bit depending on the speed of your card and the SD card reader. This is just the one built into my old MacBook, so that's what I'm using. So we'll give it a few minutes and come back when it's all done. All right, so now that's all done. We can pull the card out, and then normally on the Mac I do the eject option. All right, so now that we have our SD card, which micro SD, this little fella, there's that. We're going to go ahead and put it into the SD card slot, and let's see if I can make sure that goes in. There it goes. See, it's nice and firm there. Now we're going to put it in the case. So let's go ahead and pop this puppy open. Looks like it comes with some rubber feet. We'll put those on later. Okay, basically you should just be able to line this up. Let's see how they have it here. Push it in that way. Make sure the ports line up right. Okay. Let's see, that doesn't quite. There we go. That side looks okay. There's our SD card. There. Whoops. Kind of push it in a little bit. Make sure we got that. All right, we're going to put the lid on. Should just kind of snap in, I think. Nope, I think this end goes in first. There we go. There we go. And there you have it. There's all the ports. So that's good. Okay, so now that we have the SD card installed and the case is put together, basically all we need to do is plug it into the power. So you would do that here into the USB-C port. And I'll plug this in a second. For demonstration purposes, I am going to plug this into my computer using the HDMI cable that I have here. One end is micro HDMI, and then the other one is your standard HDMI port. Just plug into your monitor or TV. So I'm going to do that so you can see what will happen, what shows up when you first plug this thing in if you have a monitor hooked up to it. So let's do that now. I'm going to plug in the power to the Pi, and you'll see the indicator lights come on. There's a red and a green. And on the screen, we should start seeing. All right, we're starting to get video from the Pi, and this will be the boot up process. So what it's doing right now is generating SSH keys, which will allow me to remote into it. This only happens on the first boot. Now it's done its thing and it's going to reboot. Okay, the Pi is coming back now. You're going to see a whole bunch of text scroll by. This is basically how most of the Linux operating systems operate. You'll get a bunch of text as you boot up the computer, unless you're booting into a desktop, which we are not. Now it's kind of setting up all the network and all that stuff. And now we have a login. And I don't have a keyboard plugged into this, but what I'm going to try to do is remote in. Oop, it's still going. So, and I don't know where it went. Nope, it rebooted. Okay, so it wasn't quite set up yet. I guess it reboots a couple times when you first set it up. So I'll be patient here. And you can kind of see on the indicator lights on the Pi itself that when there's activity, it kind of blinks green. And red is kind of the power. It means you got power, but the green means there's activity going. So now we're back at the prompt. This is your normal Linux login prompt. Now, since I don't have a keyboard plugged into this, we are going to try to remote into it through SSH from my regular computer. So we'll try that now. So how do we connect to this via SSH? In the very last part of that last segment, there was an IP address in the text display that you saw on the screen. You can either do that. What you could do is, I'm on my Mac now, but you can do SSH and then Pi, which was my username, and then we can do, I think it was 67. Okay, so the first time you SSH into this, it's going to say, hey, I don't know you. Are you sure you want to connect? So you do yes. Then you put in your password that you had defined when you were setting up the SD card. So there we go. We are logged in remotely to our Pi. So you can see it says Pi at test. That was the name of our Pi. So what now? We're connected. Great. Well, first of all, if you run top, TOP, you can see what's running here, and none of this really matters at the moment. But right off the bat, you can see up here is your memory. So we're only using 147 megabytes of our 1 gigabyte here of memory. So that's good. If we were booted into the desktop, it would be we'd be using a lot more memory. So already we're saving, we're utilizing the cheaper Raspberry Pi by getting the 1 gig instead of the 2, 4, or 8 gig model, which was a lot, almost double the price. So there you have it. We are connected. All right, so one thing you might want to do is do an update. And basically what you want to do is run this command, sudo, which basically runs it as a root or the main administrator of the operating system. And this is what I'm going to do, update. So this is going to go out to all these different links here and check and see if there's any updates for our version of the Raspberry Pi operating system. It says, hey, 2 packages can be upgraded. So to upgrade it, we're going to type in sudo app upgrade. Hit enter. That's going to show us those 2 updates. Okay, great. You can hit enter here, or you can hit Y and enter, but it defaults to yes. So now it's going to go out and download the updates. So it's downloaded them. Now it's going to install them. And there you go. That's installed. Everything's updated. So if we run that command again, update, it should say we don't have any updates. Yep, all packages up to date. So we're good there. So that's basically it for now. That's a quick way to set up your Raspberry Pi if you're going to do it without the desktop interface. And there's, again, there's reasons for doing that. You want to save resources because we've only got 1 gig of RAM on this model. So if we would install the desktop version, that would have taken a lot more space on our SD card as well as memory RAM. When you want to have as much free RAM as possible when you're running programs, because otherwise it starts to use the SD card as memory, and it really will slow the whole system down. So that is why I'm using the desktop free version and running everything from the command line. But if your usage requires the desktop interface, then by all means use that. So you might be thinking, well, how do I shut this thing off if I don't want to have it running all the time? There is no power button on the Raspberry Pi 4. So you don't want to just pull the power cord, because that could corrupt the SD card, then you have to start all over. So what I would recommend is doing the shutdown command, which I just do sudo shutdown, and basically it'll shut down in like a minute once you do that. There you can do a variation of this and just force it to shut down, but the main sudo shutdown will just shut it off in like a minute. So then you wait for that to happen. And then once it shuts down, we'll lose our remote connection, and you'll see the command line here drop back to my local Mac terminal. Should be any second here. Okay, you got a message that says, hey, the system will power off now. Connection 2 closed. And now we're back on my Mac. So if we want to reconnect, well, we can't reconnect because it is shut down. So if you want to reconnect, then you would unplug the power from the Pi and plug it back in. And basically what we could do is ping it from our local terminal. So we'll just ping that. And once we start seeing pings to that IP address, we'll know that the Pi is back up and ready for usage. Or if you've got it plugged into a monitor, you should be able to see the command prompt. Once you see the command prompt, usually it's ready for use. See, I'm seeing pings right now. So if I reconnect, see, it's prompting me to log back in again. So there I am. I'm back into the Pi. So what do you do now? You've got this Pi, you've got the operating system installed. What now? Well, I mean, it's just, there's a limitless amount of things you can do with these. If you want to do something radio related, you could hook up an SDR to it. And I'll have more videos on that in the future on how to hook up an SDR to your Pi. You can monitor airplanes using ADS-B trackers. Something like what FlightAware uses, or Flight Radar. You can actually put an antenna on your Pi through the SDR, and you can send that data to these flight tracking websites like FlightAware, Flight Radar, Open ADS-B Exchange, etc., etc. And a lot of them will give you the free pro account for providing data to their service. So it's a win-win for me, for you, because not only do you're tracking planes from your location, and based on where you are, they may not have much coverage in your area. So if you're providing them data, they give you, the higher level account with their services, where you can do whatever, you have to check with them. But that's just one thing you could do. I also have a Pi that tracks weather balloons here in the U.S., and I'm not too far away from our local weather office, which launches balloons twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening. And even I have an indoor antenna because I can't have outdoor antennas, but I can track it from, it probably hits 10,000 feet maybe even lower, and I start picking it up. And then depending on where the wind blows it, I have pretty good coverage, at least to the west, which is where my antenna is near the window. But it's fun to experiment with that. There's just so many different things you can do. Just depends on what you're interested in and what you want to tinker with. And I'll definitely have more videos in the future on how I use it and what interests me. And maybe you'll find that's something that you're interested in doing as well. So what did you think of the Raspberry Pi? Do you already have a Raspberry Pi? What projects do you enjoy on your Pi? Is there a Pi-related project you would like me to dig into? Let me know in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer your questions. Thanks! If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and make sure to ding my bell to be notified when I post new videos. Thanks again, and 73 from K9SWX.